September 15, 1941. High above the English Channel, a lone Spitfire broke formation, its young pilot, barely out of his teens, executing a maneuver deemed suicidal by his peers. German Messerschmitts, confident in their numbers, closed in for the kill. But this was no act of desperation. It was the opening move of a daring, unconventional tactic that would soon turn the tide, changing the course of air combat and cementing a legend. To understand how it happened, we must go back to the grim realities of the air war over Britain in 1941. The Battle of Britain had been won, but the Luftwaffe remained a formidable foe, constantly probing British defences and engaging in fierce dogfights. While the Spitfire was a superb interceptor, the German Messerschmitt Bf 109, particularly its later variants like the F-series, possessed distinct advantages in climb rate, high-altitude performance, and often armament. Allied pilots, though brave and skilled, frequently found themselves at a tactical disadvantage, especially when outnumbered or surprised by the Germans' disciplined hit-and-run tactics. The constant attrition rate was a heavy burden on the Royal Air Force, straining both its pilot reserves and aircraft production. The RAF was always seeking new ways to gain an edge against their relentless enemy, knowing that every small advantage could translate into saved lives and critical victories. Traditional combat doctrine emphasized disciplined formations and textbook attacks, but the Germans were masters of these, often anticipating and countering standard maneuvers with brutal efficiency. Innovation was not just desired, it was desperately needed to maintain air superiority and protect the British Isles from further aerial assault. The psychological toll of constant combat, combined with the technical challenges, created an environment ripe for unconventional thinking. The skies above southern England were a constant theatre of war, a deadly ballet of metal and fire. Squadrons flew daily sorties, sometimes multiple times a day, intercepting bomber raids aimed at industrial centres and engaging fighter sweeps designed to draw out and destroy RAF assets. Each mission was a gamble, a test of nerve and skill, where a single mistake, a moment of hesitation, or a misjudgment of speed and distance could mean oblivion. The pressure on young pilots was immense. Many arrived fresh from training, barely out of flight school, thrust into a world where life expectancy in combat could be measured in weeks, sometimes even days. They faced experienced German aces who had honed their skills over Poland, France, and the early stages of the Battle of Britain. The RAF's Fighter Command, under astute leaders like Air Vice Marshal Trafford Leigh-Mallory, was constantly analyzing combat reports, trying to identify patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities. They understood that while superior aircraft design and rigorous pilot training were crucial, a truly decisive advantage often came from unexpected tactical breakthroughs, from pilots willing to push the boundaries of conventional warfare. It was in this environment of relentless combat, urgent innovation, and the ever-present shadow of death that the seeds of an unconventional idea began to sprout, an idea that would challenge established norms and redefine what was possible in the chaotic, three-dimensional dance of aerial warfare. The British public, too, looked to the skies, their hopes and fears riding on the young men who flew above them, knowing that air superiority was the ultimate shield against invasion. Among the fresh faces arriving at RAF Biggin Hill, one of the most famous and heavily engaged fighter stations, was Pilot Officer Thomas "Tommy" Sterling, a 19-year-old from the industrial heartland of Manchester. He was slight of build, with an earnest gaze and a quiet demeanour that belied a sharp analytical mind. Unlike many of his more boisterous peers, who often spent their off-duty hours seeking distractions from the horrors of war, Tommy spent his time poring over aircraft schematics, detailed combat reports, and even physics textbooks. He meticulously sketched diagrams of airflows, theoretical maneuvers, and potential energy states, trying to understand the invisible forces that governed aerial combat. He wasn't the most flamboyant pilot, nor the most naturally aggressive in the traditional sense, but he possessed an uncanny spatial awareness, an almost intuitive understanding of his aircraft's limits, and a deep grasp of aerodynamics. His instructors during his training had noted his exceptional precision and his remarkable ability to think several steps ahead, almost as if he were playing a three-dimensional chess game in the sky. anticipating his opponent's moves long before they were made. He had a knack for identifying subtle patterns, for seeing the unseen weaknesses in enemy tactics, a trait that would soon prove invaluable in the brutal crucible of aerial combat. His quiet intensity often made him seem aloof, but beneath the calm exterior lay a burning desire to find a better way to fight and win. Tommy Sterling's childhood in industrial Manchester was a world away from the glamour and danger of aviation. His father worked long, arduous shifts in a textile mill, the rhythmic clatter of looms a constant backdrop to Tommy's early life. His mother, a woman of quiet strength and sharp intellect, managed their small, bustling home, instilling in her children a strong work ethic and a deep sense of curiosity. From a young age, Tommy was fascinated by anything mechanical. He spent countless hours dismantling and reassembling clocks, old radios, and even his own bicycle, driven by an insatiable curiosity about how things worked, about the intricate interplay of gears, springs, and wires. This innate mechanical aptitude quickly extended to a profound fascination with flight. He devoured every book on aviation he could find in the local library, his imagination soaring with tales of early aviators and the promise of aerial combat. He meticulously built intricate model airplanes from balsa wood, tissue paper, and glue, spending hours adjusting their wings and tails until they flew with surprising grace and stability, often outperforming the models of his friends. His bedroom walls were adorned not with movie stars or sports heroes, but with carefully cut-out photographs of Spitfires and Hurricanes, their technical specifications memorized down to the last rivet, their operational ceilings and top speeds etched into his mind. When war broke out in September 1939, the call to defend his homeland was immediate and profound. He lied about his age to enlist, driven by a quiet but fierce determination to contribute to the war effort, to use his unique talents to protect his family and his country. His training at flight school was rigorous, demanding both physical endurance and mental acuity. But Tommy excelled not through brute force or daring reckless stunts, but through meticulous study, unwavering discipline, and an almost intuitive understanding of his aircraft. He wasn't the fastest or the flashiest pilot in his class, but he was consistently the most precise, his landings smooth and controlled, his gunnery accurate and economical. He absorbed every lesson, every piece of advice from his instructors, but always filtered it through his own analytical lens, constantly questioning, constantly seeking a better, more efficient way to master the art of aerial combat. His initial combat experiences were, like many, a brutal baptism by fire. He flew his first few sorties as a wingman, a crucial but often secondary role, witnessing the brutal efficiency of the Luftwaffe firsthand. He saw friends and squadron mates disappear in sudden fiery plumes of smoke, heard the desperate, choked cries over the radio as aircraft spiraled out of control, and felt the chilling, visceral fear of being targeted, of seeing the glint of an enemy fighter in his rearview mirror. He quickly realized that traditional combat tactics, while effective against less experienced pilots or in certain scenarios, often led to stalemates or unacceptable losses against the seasoned German aces who had perfected their craft over years of conflict. He observed how Messerschmitts would often use their superior climb rate to gain altitude advantage, diving on Allied formations with devastating speed before quickly disengaging and climbing back to safety, making them incredibly difficult to pin down. He noticed their predictable patterns, their reliance on speed and altitude, and their tendency to avoid prolonged, turning dogfights where the Spitfire often held an advantage. During one particularly harrowing engagement over the Kent coast, his squadron was ambushed by a flight of Bf-109s, and he narrowly escaped by breaking away from the standard defensive weave, executing an improvised tight turn that threw off his pursuer and allowed him to dive into cloud cover. It was a small instinctive deviation from established doctrine, a moment of pure improvisation, but it saved his life. This moment sparked a profound idea. What if the formation itself could become a weapon, not just a defensive shield? What if they could exploit the enemy's expectations, turning their own strengths and predictable tactics against them? He began sketching new patterns, new ways of flying together, not as rigid, easily anticipated units, but as a fluid, deceptive entity, constantly shifting and presenting an unpredictable challenge to the enemy. The transition from mere observation to active innovation was gradual but relentless. Tommy spent countless hours after missions, even when utterly exhausted from the physical and mental strain of combat, sketching diagrams in his personal logbook and on scraps of paper. He envisioned a formation that didn't just fly in a straight line or a standard V-shape, but one that could dynamically shift, creating false targets and opening unexpected attack vectors. He called it the Dragonfly Weave in his notes, a formation designed to mimic the erratic, unpredictable flight of an insect, making it almost impossible for a pursuing fighter to lock on for a clean shot. The core idea was to have two aircraft fly in extremely close proximity, almost touching wingtips, while a third acted as a bait, drawing enemy fire and attention. At a precise, predetermined moment, the two closely knit aircraft would split with violent precision, one peeling off sharply upwards, the other diving, creating a momentary illusion of three separate, rapidly moving targets, while simultaneously positioning themselves for a devastating counterattack from an unexpected angle. It was a radical departure from the RAF's established Finger Four formation, and required an almost telepathic coordination, absolute trust, and immense skill between pilots. He knew it was risky, that it would be met with deep skepticism, and that it would challenge the very foundations of RAF fighter doctrine. But he also knew that the current methods, while brave, were simply not enough to stem the tide of losses. The stakes were too high, the losses too great, to ignore a potentially game-changing idea, no matter how unconventional it seemed. He felt a profound responsibility to find a solution, driven by the faces of his fallen comrades and the unwavering belief that there had to be a better way. The dilemma facing Pilot Officer Sterling was clear and stark. Adhere to established, albeit often insufficient, tactics, or risk severe reprimand, even court-martial, for insubordination by proposing a radical new approach. Tommy knew his Dragonfly Weave would be seen as reckless, even suicidal by many of his superiors, who valued discipline and adherence to proven methods above all else. It violated several fundamental tenets of conventional air combat, particularly the emphasis on maintaining safe distances between aircraft to avoid collisions and allow for individual maneuverability. When he first tentatively presented his sketches and theories to his flight commander, Squadron Leader Davies, a veteran of the Battle of Britain, he was met with a mixture of polite skepticism and outright dismissal. "Sterling, we appreciate your enthusiasm and initiative," Davies had said, his tone firm but not unkind. "But we fly Spitfires, not Dragonflies. Our formations are proven. They keep you alive. We don't need fancy tricks. We need discipline and accurate gunnery." Other pilots, overhearing the discussions, openly mocked his ideas, calling them Tommy's Folly or Sterling's Suicide Squad. The concept of two aircraft flying so dangerously close, then splitting so violently and precisely, seemed to invite mid-air collisions rather than enemy kills. The rules of engagement were clear: maintain discipline, follow orders, and stick to the book. But Tommy, with a quiet conviction, believed the book was getting them killed, or at least preventing them from achieving decisive victories. He argued that the Germans had learned to anticipate their proven tactics, turning predictability into a glaring weakness that the Luftwaffe exploited daily. He needed to prove that his crazy idea was not just theoretical, but could work under the immense pressure and chaos of real combat. The moment of decision arrived during a particularly brutal week in late September. The squadron had suffered heavy losses, losing 3 pilots in 2 days, and morale was plummeting to dangerous lows. The constant strain of combat, coupled with the seemingly unbreakable German fighter screens, was taking its toll. During a tense debriefing after a failed interception, a frustrated Wing Commander Thompson, his face etched with fatigue and despair, openly lamented their inability to break through the German fighter escort, protecting the bomber formations. "We're throwing good men after bad," he muttered, "and still, they get through." Seizing the opportunity, Tommy, with a surge of uncharacteristic boldness that surprised even himself, stood up and presented his Dragonfly Weave to the assembled pilots and officers. He spoke with quiet conviction, explaining how it could confuse enemy gunners, create momentary blind spots, and allow for devastatingly close-range attacks from unexpected angles. He detailed the physics, the timing, the element of surprise. His voice, though soft, carried a weight of certainty that cut through the room's despair. Squadron Leader Davies, though still wary and concerned about the inherent risks, saw the desperation in his men's eyes and the glimmer of hope that Tommy's proposal offered. He reluctantly agreed to allow Sterling to test the formation in a controlled, non-combat environment, with strict orders to abort if it proved too dangerous. Tommy immediately recruited 2 trusted wingmen, Sergeants Miller and Jenkins, both known for their exceptional flying skills, their steady nerves, and their willingness to try anything that might give them an edge against the relentless enemy. They practiced for days, flying dangerously close, perfecting the intricate timing of their splits and turns, pushing their Spitfires and their own nerves to the absolute limit, until the maneuver became a seamless, instinctive dance. Their first real test came on a crisp autumn morning, October 3, 1941. A formation of Dornier d'Eau 17 bombers, escorted by a dozen Messerschmitt Bf-109s, was spotted heading towards London, their engines droning ominously across the Channel. Tommy, leading his small 3-plane section, was given permission to engage using his new tactic, with strict instructions to report back immediately. As the German fighters peeled off to intercept the main RAF formation, Tommy's section maintained a standard approach, drawing the Messerschmitts into what they assumed would be a conventional dogfight. The lead Bf-109, flown by a confident German ace, closed in on Tommy's bait aircraft, Sergeant Miller, lining up for what he believed would be an easy kill. But as the German fighter committed to its attack run, Tommy and Jenkins, flying almost wingtip to wingtip just below and behind Miller, executed the Dragonfly Weave. In a blur of synchronized motion, Jenkins peeled sharply upwards, his Spitfire climbing vertically, while Tommy dove, his aircraft dropping like a stone. This created a momentary, disorienting flash in the German pilot's vision, 3 aircraft suddenly appearing to scatter in different directions. The Messerschmitt, caught completely off guard by the unexpected maneuver, hesitated for a crucial fraction of a second, its pilot momentarily confused by the sudden, chaotic separation of targets. This split-second delay was all Tommy needed. He pulled his Spitfire into a tight climbing turn, bringing his 8 Browning 303 machine guns to bear on the now exposed and bewildered Messerschmitt. His guns spat fire, a concentrated stream of bullets stitching a deadly line across the German's fuselage, tearing into its engine and cockpit. The Bf-109 shuddered violently, smoke trailing from its engine, and spiraled downwards, a silent testament to the effectiveness of the unexpected. Jenkins, having completed his upward maneuver, was already circling back, ready to cover Tommy and engage any other German fighters. The Germans, accustomed to predictable RAF tactics, were utterly bewildered by the sudden, devastating counterattack. The Dragonfly Weave had worked, and worked brilliantly. The immediate result was electrifying. That single engagement saw Tommy's section claim 2 Messerschmitts confirmed destroyed and severely damage a third, all without a scratch on their own aircraft. The German pilots, disoriented and surprised by the unconventional tactics, broke off their attack, their formation in disarray, retreating back across the Channel. The success of the Dragonfly Weave spread like wildfire through the squadron, igniting a spark of renewed hope and confidence. Other pilots, initially skeptical and even dismissive of Tommy's crazy ideas, now clamored to learn the intricate technique. The atmosphere in the mess hall, once heavy with apprehension, buzzed with excitement and a newfound sense of tactical superiority. Tommy, along with his trusted wingmen Miller and Jenkins, spent countless hours teaching the intricate timing, the precise coordination, and the absolute trust required for the maneuver. It was a demanding process, requiring hours of practice flights, flying dangerously close, until the split-second decisions and synchronized movements became second nature. Over the next 7 months, the Dragonfly Weave became their signature tactic, a terrifying surprise for any Luftwaffe pilot who dared to engage them. It wasn't a universal solution, nor was it without risk. A momentary lapse in concentration could still lead to disaster, but it consistently gave them an undeniable edge in combat. German pilots, once confident in their ability to predict RAF maneuvers and exploit their rigid formations, now faced an unpredictable, almost chaotic opponent that seemed to defy conventional aerial combat logic. The 19-year-old pilot, once dismissed as a dreamer, was now hailed as a tactical genius, his quiet demeanor replaced by the respect and admiration of his peers. His personal tally of confirmed Messerschmitt kills steadily climbed, each victory a testament to his courage, his ingenuity, and the unwavering trust and skill of his wingmen. By the end of that 7-month period, pilot officer Thomas Sterling had 12 confirmed Messerschmitts to his name, a remarkable achievement for any pilot, let alone one so young and employing such unconventional methods. The squadron's morale soared, and their success rate improved dramatically, proving that sometimes the most effective weapon is not brute force, but a brilliant, unexpected idea executed with precision and courage. The historical impact of Tommy Sterling's Dragonfly Weave was profound, though perhaps understated in official records and often overshadowed by the larger narratives of the war. While it never became standard RAF doctrine across all commands, its complexity and the high level of pilot coordination required made widespread adoption difficult. Its principles of unpredictable, close-quarters formation, flying significantly influenced tactical discussions and inspired other squadrons to experiment with their own variations of fluid, deceptive maneuvers. It demonstrated unequivocally that rigid adherence to established methods could become a critical liability in the face of an adaptable enemy, and that innovation, even from the youngest and least experienced pilots, was absolutely vital for survival and ultimately for victory. His story became a legend whispered among pilots, a testament to the power of individual initiative and creative thinking within a highly structured military environment. It highlighted the critical importance of adapting to the enemy's evolving tactics, of constantly seeking new ways to exploit their weaknesses and counter their strengths, rather than simply reacting to them. The Dragonfly Weave was a stark reminder that the human element, courage, ingenuity, teamwork, and an unwavering belief in a better way, could often outweigh numerical or even technological superiority. It was a small but significant chapter in the broader narrative of air combat evolution during World War II, a testament to the continuous struggle for tactical advantage and the relentless pursuit of innovation in the face of overwhelming odds. It proved that the spirit of invention could be as potent a weapon as any cannon or machine gun. After the war, Thomas Sterling, now a highly decorated veteran with the Distinguished Flying Cross, chose a life away from the public eye. He declined numerous offers for lucrative speaking tours, media appearances, and even political opportunities, preferring the quiet anonymity of civilian life. He returned to his beloved Manchester, where he pursued a career in aeronautical engineering, applying his deep understanding of flight dynamics and his wartime experiences to the design of commercial aircraft. His work contributed to safer, more efficient air travel, a testament to his enduring passion for aviation. He married his childhood sweetheart, Eleanor, raised a family and lived a life of quiet dignity. His wartime heroism, a private chapter he rarely spoke of. Yet, the lessons he learned in the perilous skies, the courage he displayed under fire, and the innovative spirit he embodied, continued to guide him throughout his life. He taught his children the value of critical thinking, of questioning assumptions, and of finding creative solutions to complex problems, always emphasizing the importance of teamwork and integrity. He remained a humble man, always quick to credit his wingmen, Sergeants Miller and Jenkins, and the collective effort of the entire RAF for his successes, never seeking personal glory. His quiet life was a continuation of the same dedication and analytical prowess that had once saved lives and turned the tide in the skies over Britain. This is the true legacy of pilot officer Thomas Sterling. Not just the 12 Messerschmitts he shot down, though those numbers are impressive and speak volumes of his skill, but the profound proof that even in the darkest times, even when everything seems lost, even when facing a seemingly invincible foe, a single determined individual, armed with ingenuity, courage, and an unwavering belief in a better way, can challenge the status quo and change the course of history. One crazy formation trick at a time, one daring maneuver at a time, one moment of unexpected brilliance after another. And in doing so, prove that the human spirit, when tempered by adversity, ignited by innovation, and fueled by an unyielding will to protect what is right, is stronger than any conventional wisdom, stronger than any numerical advantage, stronger than any war machine. His story reminds us that true strength does not come from the quantity of weapons or the size of armies, but from what you are fighting for, and why you refuse to surrender.